Gertrude discovers her credit card has been charged $3,700 for all the family Christmas gifts during their traditional dinner at her parents' home. When confronted, her father casually announces that the family voted she should pay because she doesn't have children. Shaking with anger, she grabs her phone and calmly tells him, "Then you'll love what comes next." Her father laughs dismissively. The next day, her phone explodes with 37 missed calls, cousins screaming, mother begging, and father pleading with her to stop what she's done. I always thought I had a good relationship with my family, despite their constant pressure about my childless status. At 32 years old, I'm a successful financial advisor at Preston and Holloway, one of the most prestigious firms in the Northeast. My family has always seemed proud of my success, if not my personal choices. Growing up, I was especially close to my dad. William Hanson was my hero, coaching my softball team, teaching me how to change a tire, and later encouraging me to pursue finance because he saw I had a head for numbers. When I bought my first car, he helped me negotiate the price down by almost $2,000. I thought our bond was unbreakable. 3 weeks before Christmas, Mom called with her usual holiday planning. "Gertrude, honey, your father and I would love to host Christmas at our house this year. With all the little ones running around, it just makes more sense to have everyone here." I agreed immediately. Their colonial home had plenty of room for my 3 siblings and their families. Troy and his wife had 2 boys. Jessica had 3 girls with her husband. And even my younger brother Adam had just welcomed twins with his wife last spring. "I can help with shopping," I offered. "I know how busy you are, with the grandkids always visiting." Mom sounded relieved. "That would be wonderful, sweetheart. I'll give you my card when you come over this weekend." That Saturday, I visited their house to plan. Mom handed me a credit card. "This is connected to your father's account. We budgeted $150 per person, including all 15 grandchildren. I spent weekends and evenings over the next 3 weeks carefully selecting gifts. For my nephew Carson, the space enthusiast, I found a telescope. For my niece Abigail, who loves art, I bought a professional drawing tablet. Each gift was thoughtful and personal, even for my siblings and their spouses. I wanted everyone to feel special. Christmas Eve arrived with the usual chaos of my large extended family. Besides my siblings and their children, there were aunts, uncles, and cousins, 27 people in total. The house smelled of pine cinnamon and my mother's famous roast turkey. Children raced through the hallways while adults gathered in the living room with eggnog and wine. During dinner, my phone buzzed with a banking notification. Curious, I checked my app under the table and noticed a series of large charges I didn't recognize. Further investigation revealed they were all the gift purchases I'd made over the past weeks, totaling $3,700. Confused, I approached my mother in the kitchen. "Mom, I think there's been a mistake with the credit card you gave me. The charges are showing up on my account." She avoided my eyes, suddenly very interested in arranging cookies on a platter. "Oh, that's strange. Let me get your father." Dad joined us, closing the kitchen door behind him. "What's the problem, Gertie? All the Christmas gifts are showing up on my credit card, not yours. Did we use the wrong card?" Dad cleared his throat. "No mistake. We transferred the funds from your card to ours." I stared at him, not comprehending. "What do you mean, transferred? You used my money for all the gifts." "We took a family vote," he said casually, as if discussing the weather. "Since you don't have kids, we figured you should cover the expenses for those who do. You can afford it with that fancy job of yours, and the rest of us have college funds to think about." The kitchen seemed to tilt sideways. "You voted without me. It just makes sense, financially speaking. You're only buying for yourself, while the rest of us have multiple mouths to feed." I looked past him to the dining room, where my siblings avoided eye contact. They knew. They had all known. You had no right to make that decision for me, I said, my voice shaking. Dad patted my shoulder condescendingly. Sometimes family has to make tough calls. You'll understand when you have kids of your own. Oh, wait, he chuckled. You've decided not to, right? Something broke inside me at that moment. Years of comments about my biological clock and selfish lifestyle crystallized into perfect clarity. This wasn't about Christmas gifts. This was about punishing me for not living life on their terms. I need some air, I said, pushing past him. Out on the back porch, I scrolled through my banking history and made a horrifying discovery. Small transfers from my accounts to my parents had been happening for months. $50 here, $75 there. Looking further back, I found evidence that my father had been monitoring my finances for years, always knowing exactly how much I could afford to spend on family expenses. When I returned to the dining room, I was eerily calm. Everyone stared as I collected my coat and purse. Leaving so soon, Gertie Dad called out. We haven't even done the gift exchange yet. I turned to face my family, the people I had trusted my entire life. I know about the transfers, Dad. I know you've been accessing my accounts without permission. His face paled slightly, but he recovered quickly. Don't be dramatic. Family helps family. Shaking with a mixture of rage and betrayal, I grabbed my phone and looked him directly in the eyes. Then you'll love what comes next. Dad laughed, looking around at the others. Hear that everyone Princess Gertrude is making threats now. As I walked out the door, I heard my mother call after me, but I didn't turn back. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Then I opened my laptop and began typing emails that would change everything. I drove home, in a blur of tears, Christmas lights from neighborhood houses, streaking across my vision like accusatory fingers. By the time I reached my apartment, however, my sadness had crystallized into something harder, sharper, and more focused. Most people don't realize how interconnected the business world really is, especially in a mid-sized city like ours. As a senior financial advisor at Preston and Holloway, I had spent years building a network of contacts, recommending reliable service providers to clients, and yes, often steering business toward my own family members. My father's construction company, Hanson Building Solutions, had received 3 major contracts in the past year alone based on my recommendations. The Lakeside Corporate Park project would have never happened without my vouching for his company's reliability to the investors. My brother Troy's architectural firm had been brought in on at least 5 projects through my client relationships. Jessica's interior design business stayed afloat largely due to the wealthy clients I sent her way, and even Adam's new restaurant had received startup funding from one of my firm's partners after I arranged an introduction. They had been happy to benefit from my connections, while simultaneously resenting my success. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. At 11:30 that night, I called Bernard Preston himself, the founding partner of my firm, knowing he would still be awake, reviewing reports. Bernard, I apologize for calling so late on Christmas Eve, but I've encountered a serious potential conflict of interest, situation that I need to address immediately. He was instantly alert. What's happened, Gertrude? I've discovered some concerning financial entanglements with family members whose businesses I've recommended to our clients. I need to formally withdraw all my endorsements until this can be properly sorted out. There was a pause. This sounds serious. Should we be worried about liability? I'm preparing documentation now, I told him. I'll have everything on your desk the day after Christmas, but I wanted to alert you immediately that I'll be contacting affected clients tonight. I trust your judgment, Gertrude. You're one of our most ethical advisors. Do what you need to do. For the next 3 hours, I drafted carefully worded emails. To clients who had hired my father's company, I must disclose a previously unknown conflict of interest regarding Hansen Building Solutions. While I believed my recommendation was based solely on merit, I've discovered financial irregularities that force me to withdraw my professional endorsement effective immediately. Similar emails went out regarding Troy's firm Jessica's Design Company and Adam's Restaurant. I didn't allege any specific wrongdoing. I didn't need to. In the financial world, the mere suggestion of impropriety is enough to send clients running. To each family member, I scheduled a delayed email to be sent the following afternoon explaining that their vote about Christmas gifts had professional consequences. As you've decided, I should bear financial burdens without consent. I can no longer, in good conscience, maintain professional relationships that might be similarly compromised. I worked methodically documenting every irregular transaction I could find. Every instance where family obligations had been disguised as business opportunities. I compiled a spreadsheet of all the money that had been siphoned from my accounts without explicit permission over the years. The total made me physically ill, nearly $37,000. At 3 a.m, I finally went to bed, setting my phone to Do Not Disturb. The storm would hit soon enough. I woke at 10 to the sight of my notification screen filled with missed calls, texts, and voicemails. As I scrolled through them, a text from Troy appeared. "What the hell? Gertrude Sinclair Development just pulled out of our contract. Dad's going ballistic." Minutes later, my phone rang with a call from my father's business partner, Grant Wilson. "Gertrude, I don't know what's happened between you and your father, but we just lost the Lakeside project. 3 years of work gone overnight. The investors said they received concerning information about financial practices." "I'm sorry to hear that, Grant," I said evenly. "Unfortunately, I've recently discovered some financial irregularities involving family accounts that made it ethically necessary for me to withdraw my professional support. But the Lakeside project is worth millions. Your father's beside himself. Perhaps he should have considered the consequences before making financial decisions on my behalf without consent." More calls followed. Jessica's largest client had canceled their contract. Adam's Restaurant investor was reconsidering their commitment. Every business connection I had facilitated for my family was unraveling simultaneously. Around noon, I received an unexpected call from my mother's cousin Diane, who worked as a receptionist at my father's company. "Gertrude, I'm probably risking my job by telling you this, but you should know what your parents have been saying about you. They've been telling potential partners you might date that you have mental issues and need to be handled carefully. I've heard your mother say it myself when men call for you." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My perpetually single status suddenly made more sense. How many relationships had been sabotaged before they could begin? "Why would they do that?" I asked, stunned. Diane's voice lowered. "From what I can gather, they worry that if you start a serious relationship, you'll prioritize your partner over family. They need your financial support too much to risk it." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. They weren't just taking advantage of me financially. They were actively working to keep me isolated and dependent on family for emotional support, all while criticizing me for not having children. The family that had shaped my identity, my sense of belonging, had been systematically manipulating me for years. The Christmas gift vote wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time they had been brazen enough to tell me about their exploitation to my face. At 1 o'clock, my phone lit up with a call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. His message alternated between rage and pleading. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You're destroying this family. Please, Gertie, whatever this is about, we can fix it. Call me back immediately. I didn't. Instead, I called my company's IT department and asked them to review all access to my work accounts for potential security breaches. Then I changed every password I had ordered a credit freeze and scheduled appointments with both my bank's fraud department and a lawyer specializing in financial crimes. The family that had taught me about money and success had also taught me about consequences, though perhaps not in the way they intended. They were about to learn that lesson themselves. The doorbell rang at 7 that evening. Through the peephole, I saw my brother Troy shifting nervously from foot to foot. I considered ignoring him, but ultimately decided to face whatever was coming. When I opened the door, Troy looked terrible. Eyes, bloodshot hair, uncombed, his usually pristine button-down wrinkled as if he'd slept in it. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I stepped aside wordlessly. Troy had always been the diplomatic one, the family mediator. If they were sending him, things must be desperate. "There's an emergency family meeting happening right now, at Mom and Dad's," he said, pacing my living room. "They sent me to bring you." "I'm not going." "Gertie, you have to understand, everything's falling apart. Dad's company might lose the Miller contract too. That's 40% of their annual revenue. Jessica's best client just fired her. And Adam's investor is pulling out. What did you do?" "Exactly what I said I would. I withdrew my professional support from businesses that I can no longer ethically endorse." Troy ran his hands through his hair. "Over Christmas gifts? This seems extreme, Gertie." "It's not about the gifts. It's about the systematic financial exploitation that's apparently been happening for years with everyone's knowledge except mine." He collapsed onto my couch, suddenly deflating. "I voted against it, you know. When Dad proposed making you pay for Christmas, I told them it wasn't fair. But you didn't warn me. I was outvoted." He looked up, his expression pained. "There's something else you should know." Troy pulled out his phone and played a recording. I recognized the voices immediately, my parents, Jessica, Adam, and various aunts and uncles in heated discussion. "We need to approach this carefully," my mother was saying. "Gertrude has always been sensitive about feeling included. If we frame it as us needing her help during a difficult time." "Just tell her we'll pay her back," Adam suggested. "We won't, obviously, but it'll buy us time to fix this mess." "Jessica, you're closest to her," my father said. "Take the kids over tomorrow. She can't resist those little faces. Get her to agree to a sit-down. And say what Jessica sounded. Frustrated. She's torpedoed my biggest account. Abigail's private school tuition is due next month." My Uncle Frank's voice cut in. "Will you all listen to yourselves? You've been bleeding that girl dry for years, and now you're surprised she's finally had enough. I'm with Diane on this. What you've all been doing is shameful." The recording ended, and Troy looked at me guiltily. "There's a faction forming. Uncle Frank, Aunt Helen, Cousin Lucy. They're all saying this has gone too far." My phone buzzed with texts from my nieces and nephews. "Auntie Gertie, we miss you. When are you coming back? Did we do something wrong?" The messages had the stilted quality of parent-directed communication. "They're using the children now," I said, showing Troy the screen. He had the decency to look ashamed. Jessica's idea. My phone rang. My mother. When I didn't answer, she left a tearful voicemail. "Gertrude, please call us. Your father might lose everything. We need to talk as a family." 10 minutes later, my father called. His message was less emotional and more tactical. "Gertie, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Now it's time to act like an adult and fix the damage you've caused. Call me back within the hour, or I'll have no choice but to take more serious measures." "What does he mean by serious measures?" I asked Troy. Troy wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's the other reason I'm here. Dad's been accessing your financial information, not just viewing it. He's taken out loans. What? Using your information. Your social security number, copies of your ID. He has a whole file. The room seemed to spin. That's fraud. That's criminal. I know. And if you push this, if you keep withdrawing support from family businesses, he's threatening to make it look like you were complicit, like you authorized everything. The betrayal was so profound, I could barely breathe. The father who taught me about financial responsibility had been committing fraud in my name. Troy, you need to leave. Gertie, please just come talk to everyone. We can work this out as a family. There is no family right now. There are criminals. And there's me. Get out. After he left, I called the credit bureau's fraud department and reported unauthorized access to my accounts. I requested a complete audit of all accounts associated with my social security number. Then I called the police and filed a report. At midnight, my father called again. His voice had lost its authoritative edge, replaced by something I'd never heard before, fear. The bank called me, he said, without preamble. Something about a fraud investigation. Gertrude, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. You committed identity theft against your own daughter. It wasn't like that I was just borrowing against your excellent credit to help the family. Everything was going to be paid back. With what money, Dad, mine? A long pause. There are things you don't know about the family finances, about the business. Like what? Another pause. I've had to move some money around over the years, between accounts, the company's personal ones, clients. I always put it back. But with these contracts being canceled, the cash flow isn't there. The implications hit me like a truck. You've been embezzling. That's an ugly word for helping families survive, he snapped. I did what I had to do, and now your little tantrum is exposing everything. Do you realize what will happen if this continues, Prison Gertrude? For your own father. The manipulation was so blatant, it almost made me laugh. You should have thought about that before committing fraud. I'm begging you. Stop the fraud investigation. Tell the clients everything's fine. We'll figure out the rest. No. Gertrude Eleanor Hanson, I am your father, and I'm your daughter, not your personal ATM. I think we're done here. I hung up and turned off my phone. Sleep was impossible. The father I had idolized my entire life was a criminal who had been exploiting me for years. The mother who always urged me to be generous had been enabling him. My siblings, who I thought were my closest allies, had been complicit. The perfect family facade had not just crumbled, it had exploded, revealing something ugly and corrupt underneath. And I was only beginning to understand how deep the corruption went. For 3 days I maintained isolation, working remotely, and screening all calls. The family bombardment continued, pleading messages, angry accusations, thinly veiled threats. I documented everything for my growing legal file. On the 4th day after Christmas, an unexpected knock came at my door. Peering through the peephole, I saw my father's sister, Aunt Helen, holding what appeared to be a gift bag. Helen had always been the family outlier. Divorced twice, no children, running her own bookkeeping service. My father often made comments about her unconventional choices. Cautiously, I opened the door. Before you close it in my face, she said quickly. I'm not here as a family ambassador. I'm here because I've been where you are. I let her in, and she placed the gift bag on my coffee table. The kids made these before everything blew up. They actually do miss you. She pulled out handmade ornaments cards and a clay handprint from my youngest niece. Thanks, I said, touched despite myself. But I'm guessing you didn't come just to deliver crafts. Helen sat down suddenly, looking every one of her 62 years. No, I came to tell you you're not the first, and if you back down now, you won't be the last. What do you mean? Your grandfather did the same thing to your father that he's doing to you. Financial manipulation, guilt family obligation as a weapon. It's a pattern going back generations. She pulled out an old photo album. Your grandfather controlled the family money. Your father had to beg for everything, justify every expense. When your father started his business, the financial strings came with emotional chains. That's why I left at 18 and never looked back. I flipped through photos I'd never seen. My father as a young man looking beaten down in a way I recognized from my own mirror recently. He became what he hated, I whispered. That's how trauma works sometimes, Helen said gently. But understanding doesn't require forgiveness or continued exploitation. I've watched them do this to you for years, and I've said nothing. That ends today. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally I would ignore it, but something made me answer. Gertrude, it's Jackson. Jackson Moore. Jackson was a family friend I'd always had a connection with, though timing had never worked out for us. He'd moved away for work 3 years ago. Jackson, how did you get my number? Your cousin Lucy. Listen, I've been hearing some concerning things. Your dad's telling people you're having a nervous breakdown, that you need family intervention. I thought you should know. After thanking him and promising to catch up properly soon, I received another unexpected call. My boss, Cynthia. Gertrude, I've been reviewing the documentation you sent. This goes beyond conflict of interest. This looks like systematic financial abuse. The firm will support whatever actions you need to take, including legal representation. Later that afternoon, I received an anonymous email containing screenshots of a family group chat I wasn't part of. The messages spanned years, discussing how to best utilize Gertrude's success and leverage her connections. My brothers, sisters, cousins, all strategizing about how to benefit from my career while minimizing what they gave in return. The betrayal was comprehensive, but surprisingly, each new revelation strengthened rather than weakened me. The fog of familial obligation was lifting, revealing a clarity I had never experienced. Aunt Helen returned the next day with a folder of documents. There's something else you should know. Your college fund, the one your parents said they scrimped and saved for, it was actually set up by your maternal grandmother. Your father emptied it during your sophomore year and replaced it with loans in your name. I stared at the bank statements in disbelief. How do you know this? Your grandmother asked me to be the custodian, but your father convinced her to transfer control to him instead. I've always suspected, but I finally got proof when I started doing some digging after Christmas. The next bombshell came from Marion Elliott, my godmother, who had moved to Arizona years ago. Her email arrived with the subject line, "Long overdue truth." Dearest Gertrude, I've just heard from Helen about what's happening. There's something you need to know. Your grandmother Peterson left you a specific inheritance of $50,000 upon her death 10 years ago. Your father, as executor, was supposed to transfer these funds to you. When I asked about it at the time, he said you had requested the money be used for family investments instead. I see now this was a lie. The revelations kept coming. Through my bank's fraud investigation, I discovered that the childhood home I had helped my parents refinance 5 years ago wasn't even in their name. The property had been transferred to a shell company with my father as the hidden beneficiary. My $30,000 gift toward their mortgage had gone straight into his business accounts. Each discovery should have devastated me, but instead, I felt a strange liberation. The guilt and obligation that had defined my relationship with my family was being replaced by a determination I hadn't known I possessed. Jackson called again, this time to meet for coffee. After 3 hours of conversation where he listened without judgment, he looked at me with admiration rather than pity. You know, I always wondered why you never seemed interested when I tried to ask you out years ago. Your mother told me you were focusing on your career and not emotionally available. She What? The magnitude of the interference in my life was still unfolding. I thought you knew. She would find ways to casually mention your issues whenever I was around. I eventually gave up thinking you weren't interested. Another piece of my life they had controlled without my knowledge. How many relationships had been sabotaged? How many friendships managed? The isolation I had sometimes felt wasn't accidental. It was engineered to keep me dependent on the very people exploiting me. That night, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by evidence of years of manipulation. The family that had shaped my identity had also been systematically undermining my independence. The revelation was painful, but ultimately freeing. For the first time in my adult life, I was seeing the truth unobscured by familial obligation or emotional manipulation. I was no longer alone in this fight. Aunt Helen, Jackson, Cynthia, Marion, and even family members like Uncle Frank, who were beginning to question the status quo, I had allies I never expected. The path forward was becoming clear, and it wouldn't be the reconciliation my family was desperately pushing for. It would be justice. By New Year's Day, the pressure from my family had evolved from desperate pleas to coordinated strategy. My mother showed up at my apartment, unannounced, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Gertrude, your father hasn't slept in days. The bank is asking questions about the business accounts. Jessica might lose her house." When sympathy failed to move me, she switched tactics. "After everything we've done for you, we gave you a stable home, supported your education. Is this how you repay family? Did Dad tell you he emptied my college fund? Or that he's been taking out loans in my name? Or about Grandma Peterson's inheritance he stole from me?" Her expression flickered between shock and something else, guilt. She knew. "Maybe not everything, but enough. Your father does what's necessary for this family to thrive," she said defensively. "Sometimes that means making difficult decisions." "Fraud isn't a difficult decision, Mom. It's a crime." She left in tears. But not before delivering a parting shot. "You're tearing this family apart. And for what money is that really more important than blood?" The family unity was beginning to fracture under pressure. Troy called to inform me that Jessica was now blaming him for not stopping me sooner. Adam was accusing Jessica of excessive spending that put the family in this position. My aunts and uncles were taking sides. "Dad's business partner Grant wants to talk to you," Troy said, without Dad knowing. Grant Wilson had been my father's partner for 20 years. Our meeting took place in a coffee shop 2 towns over to avoid being seen. "I've suspected financial irregularities for years," he confessed, sliding a USB drive across the table. "But I could never prove it. William is very careful. These are files I've been collecting. Questionable transfers, discrepancies in client billing, missing funds from project accounts." "Why are you giving me this?" Grant looked tired. "Because I have a daughter your age, and if someone was doing to her what William's been doing to you, I'd want someone to step in. Also, frankly, to protect myself. If this all comes crashing down, I don't want to go down with it." That evening, my youngest niece, Lily, somehow managed to call me from her mother's phone. "Auntie, Gertie, Mommy, and Daddy are fighting a lot. They keep saying your name. Are you coming for my birthday next week?" The innocence of her question broke my heart. "I don't think so, sweetheart. The grown-ups are having some disagreements right now." "Is it because of the secret money I heard Daddy tell Mommy about secret money?" Children hear everything. Before I could respond, Jessica grabbed the phone, hissing, "Don't you dare turn my children against me too," before hanging up. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "Back off now, or things will get worse for you." The handwriting wasn't familiar, but the message was clear. The threats had begun. 2 nights later, my building's security system alerted me to someone attempting to access my apartment while I was working late. The security camera showed my brother Adam and one of my cousins retreating when the alarm sounded. I filed another police report. The family smear campaign extended beyond private conversations. A client called to ask if everything was all right, mentioning they'd heard I was having personal problems. My cousin's wife, a nurse at my doctor's office, had apparently been sharing concerns about my mental health with anyone who would listen. Midway through January, the most shocking twist yet emerged. While reviewing my credit reports with the fraud investigator, we discovered multiple credit cards opened in my name that I knew nothing about. The paperwork traced back not to my father, but to my sister Jessica. Your sister has opened 4 accounts using your Social Security number, the investigator explained. The total outstanding balance is just over $26,000. I sat in stunned silence. Jessica, who had always criticized my materialistic lifestyle while vacationing in Europe and driving a luxury SUV, the sister, who had tearfully borrowed money for her daughter's braces just last year, was charging designer clothes on fraudulent cards in my name. When confronted via certified letter from my attorney, Jessica showed up at my workplace, creating a scene in the lobby. "How dare you accuse me of theft after everything I've done for you? You're just jealous because I have a family and you're alone." Security escorted her out, but not before she shouted that I was dead to the family and would regret this betrayal. That night, my car was vandalized in my assigned parking space. The word traitor scratched deeply into the paint. The security camera had been deliberately angled away, but it wasn't hard to guess who was responsible. I filed for restraining orders against Jessica and Adam, using the security footage of Adam's break-in attempt and documentation of Jessica's workplace confrontation. The hearing was set for early February. In the meantime, my father made one last desperate attempt at intimidation, showing up at my office building and cornering me in the parking garage. "You need to stop this insanity right now," he growled, blocking my path to my car. "Move away from me, or I'll call security," I said calmly, already dialing on my phone. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? The fraud investigation is spreading to the business accounts. If that happens, everyone goes down. Me, your mother, even your precious Aunt Helen, who did our books for years." Something in his desperation triggered a realization. This isn't just about the loans in my name or the credit cards, is it? There's more. His expression confirmed it before he could deny anything. Whatever financial web he'd spun was more extensive than I had imagined. "We can still fix this," he said, lowering his voice. "I'll pay back the Christmas gifts. I'll put the house in your name. Whatever you want. I want the truth. All of it. You can't handle the truth. You think family is all sunshine and support. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes it's doing whatever it takes to keep everyone afloat." Security arrived before I could respond, and my father retreated, calling over his shoulder. "This isn't over, Gertie." He was right about that, at least. It wasn't over, it was escalating. The most shocking revelation came the following week when the forensic accountant, hired by my attorney, discovered evidence of regular money transfers from my father's business account to an unknown recipient in Portland, Oregon. Further investigation revealed the unthinkable. My father had been maintaining a second household for over 15 years. A woman named Rachel and 2 children who appeared to be college-aged. Regular payments, property tax records, even college tuition. My father had a second family that none of us knew about. When confronted with this evidence, my mother finally broke. She called me sobbing uncontrollably. "I've known for 10 years, she admitted. "He threatened to leave me with nothing if I told anyone. The business was in his name, the house was in his name. What could I do? You could have protected your children instead of enabling him to exploit us. I was protecting you. Do you think it was easy watching him drain your accounts? hearing him plan ways to use your success for his benefit? I fought him as much as I could. Not hard enough, Mom. Not nearly hard enough. The family that had defined my identity, shaped my values, and claimed my loyalty had been built on lies so profound that nothing remained of what I thought was real. But from these ashes something new and unexpected was emerging. My own strength uncompromised by manipulation or false obligation. The counterstrike had revealed the full extent of the corruption, and there would be no going back to the way things were. The only path now was forward into a truth I was finally ready to face. By early February, the situation had escalated beyond family drama to potential criminal proceedings. My father, desperate to maintain control of the narrative, launched a campaign to undermine my professional credibility. An anonymous complaint appeared on my firm's ethics board, alleging I had improperly mixed family and client business for years. The complaint suggested I had received kickbacks for recommending family members' services to the exact opposite of what had actually occurred. Bernard called me into his office, looking grave. "Gertrude, we've received some concerning allegations. Given our previous discussions, I'm inclined to believe this is retaliation, but we need to address it formally." I placed my documentation on his desk, years of emails showing I had disclosed family relationships appropriately, proof that money had flowed from me to family businesses, rather than the reverse bank statements demonstrating the systematic drainage of my accounts. "This is extensive," Bernard said, flipping through the files. "You've been dealing with this alone all this time." I didn't realize what was happening until Christmas. I thought I was helping family. I didn't understand I was being exploited. The ethics board not only dismissed the complaint, but issued a formal statement supporting me as a victim of financial abuse. This professional vindication, however, drove my family to more desperate measures. One evening, both my brothers showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door and yelling loud enough for neighbors to hear. "You've destroyed everything," Adam shouted through the door. "Dad's company is being audited. They're freezing accounts." "The police came to Jessica's house," Troy added. Her children saw their mother being questioned like a criminal. I called building security, who arrived quickly and escorted them out. As they were leaving, Troy shouted, "This isn't over. Gertie family doesn't quit." The stress began taking a physical toll. Chest pains sent me to the emergency room where doctors diagnosed an anxiety attack. While I was lying in the hospital bed, my mother somehow discovered my location and appeared in the doorway. "See what you're doing to yourself," she pleaded. "This vendetta is hurting you too. Please, let's find a way to move forward as a family." "The way forward is accountability, Mom. For all of you." She sat heavily in the visitor's chair. "Your father may be looking at criminal charges. Is that what you want, to see him in prison? What I want is for him to take responsibility for what he's done, what all of you have done." Her expression hardened. "You were always the difficult one. Always questioning, never accepting your place. If you'd just gotten married and had children like your siblings, none of this would have happened. If I'd gotten married and had children, you would have found other ways to exploit me. You're just angry because I finally set boundaries." She left without another word, but her visit reinforced what I already knew. They still didn't see me as a victim of their actions. I was the problem, the ungrateful daughter who wouldn't play by family rules. The situation deteriorated further when family members began contacting my clients directly. One called to tell me he'd received an email from someone claiming to be my brother, warning that I was emotionally unstable and vindictively targeting family businesses. 2 days later, I discovered my car vandalized again, this time with "family traitor" scratched deeply into the paint. The security cameras had been deliberately disabled. My attorney advised filing formal cease and desist orders against multiple family members. When these were ignored, we proceeded with court hearings for restraining orders. The courthouse scene was surreal. One side of the room filled with family members I had once trusted completely, my parents' siblings, several aunts and uncles, even cousins I had been close to. On my side sat Aunt Helen, Uncle Frank, my godmother Marion, who had flown in from Arizona, and Jackson, who had taken a leave from work to support me. As evidence was presented, screenshots of threatening messages, security footage of the apartment break-in attempt, documentation of identity theft and fraud, a hush fell over the family side of the room. Many had known pieces of what was happening, but seeing the comprehensive pattern of abuse laid out legally seemed to shock even some of the participants. The judge granted restraining orders against my father, Jessica, and Adam. As we left the courtroom, I overheard my mother wailing to my aunt, "How did we get here? How could she do this to us?" Still incapable of seeing their own culpability. The most unexpected turn came when the court documents revealed a pattern that extended beyond me. Financial records showed similar tactics had been used against elderly relatives. My great-aunt Susan's retirement funds had been managed by my father, with large sums diverted to family expenses. My cousin Peter's inheritance had been invested in my father's business without proper documentation. What had happened to me was not isolated. It was part of a multi-generational pattern of financial predation, disguised as family taking care of family. That evening, my mother appeared at my apartment alone, looking decades older than her actual age. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly, when I reluctantly let her in. "I've known about most of it. Not all, but enough. The loans in your name, the transfers from your accounts. Rachel in Portland. Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you warn me?" She stared at her hands. "Because I was afraid. Because it was easier to keep the peace than fight. Because by the time I realized how bad it was, I was complicit. And yes, because we needed the money. That's not good enough, Mom. I know." For the first time, there was no manipulation in her expression, just exhaustion and defeat. "I failed you as a mother. I can see that now." Her admission should have been satisfying, but it just felt hollow. Too little, too late. The final revelation came through court-ordered discovery. Among my father's personal files was a document titled Family Financial Strategy 2015 to 2025. It detailed a comprehensive plan to leverage my career success, connection, and income for the benefit of the extended family. I was literally listed as their long-term security plan with projected contributions mapped out for decades to come. My entire adult relationship with my family had been predicated on what I could provide financially, not who I was as a person. My childless status wasn't just a disappointment to them. It was a feature in their calculations, ensuring I had no competing financial obligations to diminish what I could give to them. The document listed risks to financial strategy, including Gertrude developing stronger boundaries, potential serious relationships, and career changes. Next to each risk was a mitigation strategy. Everything from emotional manipulation tactics to specific language for making me feel guilty about professional decisions that didn't benefit the family. It was the breaking point in the truest sense. Whatever remaining emotional ties I had to my family of origin snapped completely upon reading their clinical assessment of how best to extract resources from me for years to come. I was not a daughter, sister, or aunt to them. I was an asset to be managed and exploited. And now that I had broken free of their control, I was a threat to be neutralized. The family I had known was dead. It had never really existed except in my own desperate desire to belong. What remained was the truth, painful as it was, and the chance to build something new from the ashes of those illusions. 6 months after that fateful Christmas dinner, I stood in the sunlit kitchen of my new home in Charlotte, 300 miles from the city, where I'd spent my entire life. The distance wasn't just geographical. It represented a psychological and emotional boundary that had transformed my life. The legal consequences for my family members had unfolded gradually. My father faced multiple criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. He eventually accepted a plea deal that included restitution probation and community service, narrowly avoiding prison due to his age and health concerns. His business collapsed under the weight of the financial improprieties revealed by the investigation. Jessica was charged with credit card fraud and identity theft. She received probation and was ordered to repay the $26,000 she had stolen plus penalties. Her interior design business closed, and her husband filed for separation, unwilling to be dragged down by the financial and legal consequences. Adam avoided criminal charges but lost his restaurant when investors pulled out. Troy, who had played a smaller role in the exploitation, managed to salvage his architectural practice by separating completely from the family businesses and making amends where he could. My mother, though not charged criminally, lost the family home when it was revealed that the mortgage had been fraudulently obtained. She moved in with her sister in Colorado, calling me occasionally, with careful, emotionally restrained conversations that acknowledged the vast distance between us now. Not all family relationships were unsalvageable. My youngest brother Troy eventually reached out with a genuine apology and a desire to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. "I've been seeing a therapist," he told me during his first visit to my new home. "She helped me understand how dysfunctional our family system was, how we were all playing roles Dad assigned us. I don't expect forgiveness, Gertie, but I want you to know I'm doing the work to be better." Aunt Helen had become a regular presence in my life, calling weekly and visiting monthly. "I should have intervened years ago," she often said, "but I'm proud of you for breaking the cycle." Uncle Frank and several cousins, who had recognized the toxicity in the family system, also maintained contact, creating the foundation for a chosen family based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Professionally, I had not just survived, but thrived. After the ethics board cleared my name completely, Bernard offered me a partnership at the firm and the opportunity to open a new branch office in Charlotte. "Your integrity through this whole nightmare has been remarkable," he told me. "We need more of that in this industry." My client base had actually grown as word spread about my refusal to compromise ethical standards, even under extreme personal pressure. I became known as someone who could be trusted absolutely with financial matters, and a reputation worth far more than any family connections could have provided. Jackson Moore, who had supported me through the darkest moments of the family implosion, had relocated to Charlotte as well. Our relationship had developed, gradually built on mutual respect and clear communication, everything my family relationships had lacked. "I always knew you were strong," he told me one evening, as we sat on my patio watching the sunset. "But watching you rebuild your life from scratch after everything they did, it's inspiring." Perhaps the most unexpected development was the support group I now led for survivors of family financial abuse. What began as my own healing process had expanded into a community resource that helped others recognize and escape similar situations. "You gave me the courage to look at my own family's patterns," one participant told me. "For the first time in my adult life, I feel like I can breathe financially without guilt." My relationship with my nieces and nephews remained complicated. The younger ones didn't understand what had happened, only that family gatherings had stopped and Auntie Gertie had moved away. The older ones had witnessed enough to form their own judgments, and several had reached out independently as they entered adulthood. My niece Rachel, Jessica's oldest at 17, had sent a letter that brought me to tears. "Mom won't talk about what happened, but I've pieced enough together to understand you were right to do what you did. I'm applying to colleges now, and I'm interested in finance like you. Could we talk sometime about your career path? That spark of connection with the next generation gave me hope that the toxic patterns could truly be broken, not just in my life, but in theirs as well. The final interaction with my father came 9 months after Christmas, when he requested a meeting through his attorney. Against the advice of my own lawyer, I agreed to see him one last time. We met in a neutral location, a conference room at the courthouse. He looked diminished, the commanding presence that had dominated my childhood, now bent under the weight of consequences. I wanted to say, he began, then stopped, seeming unsure how to continue. I waited, refusing to make this easier for him. I still believe I did what was necessary for the family, he finally said. But I recognize that my methods were inappropriate. Not an apology, not really. More a justification with a slight acknowledgement of overstepping. Is that all I asked? I want to know if there's a path back, he said, to some kind of relationship. You're still my daughter. I considered my response carefully. Biology made me your daughter, but your actions made me a victim. I don't see a path back to anything resembling our former relationship. So that's it. 40 years of family erased, the family I thought I had never existed. It was a facade covering systematic exploitation. I'm building something real now, with people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. He shook his head, still unable to truly see what he had done. You'll regret this hardline stance when you're older. Family is all we have in the end. No, I said, standing to leave. Family is supposed to be people who love and support each other without conditions or calculations. What we had wasn't family. It was a business arrangement where only I didn't get to see the terms. I walked out without looking back, feeling neither triumph nor sorrow, just the quiet certainty that I was finally free. The following Christmas looked nothing like those that had come before. I hosted a small gathering in my new home. Aunt Helen, Uncle Frank, and his wife Troy, and his children Jackson and friends from both my professional life and support group. Everyone contributed equally to the meal and gifts. There were no hidden agendas, no financial score, keeping no manipulation disguised as tradition. As I looked around at the faces of my chosen family, I realized that the greatest gift of that terrible Christmas charge had been the opportunity to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth and authentic connection. The path had been unimaginably painful, but the destination was worth every difficult step. Family, I had learned, is not defined by blood or obligation. It's created through respect, reciprocity, and genuine care for one another's well-being. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to recognize when relationships have become harmful and have the courage to establish boundaries, even when those boundaries must be as final as walking away. The journey from victim to survivor to thriver had transformed me in ways I never could have anticipated when I saw that credit card charge on Christmas Eve. I had lost a family, but found myself, and in that discovery was a peace that no amount of false harmony could have provided. What do you think about setting boundaries with family members who cross financial lines? Have you ever had to make difficult decisions about family relationships that became unhealthy? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for themselves. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you healthy relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care.